When I start fishing docks, what I want to do when I start off on them is I'm going to fish the whole dock, and every day they're going to be keying on one part of the dock or the other. Certain times of the year they're going to be on the walkways better. Certain times of the year they're going to be on the outsides better. You really just have to start out fishing until you find out what part of the dock the fish are on. A lot of times in the early part of the year, in the spawning period, they're going to be on the walkways, and a lot of times I catch them on that last walkway where you can't see the bottom. It seems like that they really key on that during the spawn and immediately after the spawn. You'll see little balls of fry around the shade of the docks. A lot of those are going to be sitting on those outside corners. Once you figure out where on the docks that the fish are located, you can really go and cover a lot of docks. Just hit that high percentage area. If they're on the walkways, just fish the walkways. If they're on the outside corners or in the boat stalls, then just fish those, and you can really cover a lot more of that high percentage areas. A lot of times I like to use a creature bait when I'm flipping piers, because for one thing, it skips pretty well compared to some of the other baits. This is a young Christie critter, and it's got a fairly bulky body, so it holds a heavier hook. This is a 3/0 Mustad grip pin flipping hook, and I always flip piers with a 5/16 ounce weight. By keeping a consistent weight, it helps you get your bait back under there, and you're always, when you pick it up and you go to make the flip, it's always the same weight. Like if I had a rod rig with a 1/4 or 3/16, by just going from one to the other, a lot of times your accuracy is going to be affected. So by keeping that consistent weight, and that 5/16 is a little heavier, so it skips back, I'm able to slide my bait back under the dock real well. And that's what you want to do. You want to, skip it back under past those pier poles on the walkway where you can bring the bait by both of them at the same time. Little hole in the gap of those boards, anything like that you can help get your bait a little bit further back. And with those slats right there, even though you can get between them, a lot of times it's hard to get a big one out. So that's something you always think about too before you make a pitch, is being able to get the fish through there. That one hit it swimming out, and they'll do that sometimes. And a lot of times when you see that, you can actually change into more of a moving bait presentation. Skipping a swimming jig up in there, skipping a bladed jig. Even at times I catch a lot throwing a crankbait around the piers, something like a Bomber 2A or a Bandit 100, a little square lip to ricochet off the poles. But you definitely want to, just like that one, be prepared up until the last second when you're reeling in for when to get it. One thing when you're flipping docks, or flipping any shallow cover, when you're flipping docks and the wind is pushing you, a lot of times you won't be able to make quite as accurate a cast as you want to. The boat's drifting, and just like here, we've got a wind coming in to us, pushing us into the dock, and a lot of times I'll drop the power poles like I've got them down now, so that I can get the perfect cast. I'm a firm believer that one perfect cast is better than 2 or 3 or 4 where the angle is not right. So by dropping the power poles, it holds you in the correct position. A lot of times when your bait gets in there, that fish is going to bite on the first cast. So I like to wait till my boat's perfectly in line so I can get as far back in there as possible. When I'm flipping docks, I like to use a slightly shorter rod than I would if I'm flipping a heavier cover, flipping grass. This is a loose 7.2 heavy action. It's called the Magnum grass rod, and it's got a good flexible tip, but it's got a ton of backbone, so that when that tip lets me spring the bait up in there and get a good skip with it. But at the same time, it's got a lot of backbone so that I can get them away from the poles and get them out of the docks. Reel wise, I always want to use a high-speed reel when I'm doing this to help take up the slack and to get those fish away from the poles. This is a 6-4-1 Lew's Tournament Pro. This is 20-pound test Fishes Pro Elite, and that's pretty much my standard when I'm flipping docks. If it's real clear, I'll drop down to 17, but that, by using that heavier line, it keeps you from having to retie quite as often. Because when you hit the poles, a lot of those poles have got little splinters off of them, got nails there. It's really abrasive to your line, and then when you get a fish that takes you up under the poles, you definitely need to check your line after every cast. All right. That fish was way back under there in the shade, and it was one of those deals that hit on the initial drop. So when I picked up, it had already pulled me up under the pole.